Hello and welcome back to another episode of This Round is on Me. I'm excited to have not one, but two guests in the studio today, both pioneers in their respective fields, and I have managed to get them to agree, or at least one of them to agree to introduce themselves and maybe both people, but go for it.
Okay, I'm Joseph. And this is my wife Devika, or as I like to call myself, I'm Devika's husband.
That's better.
Yeah. So introducing Devika Narain is not easy. This is the first time I'm doing it. Devika is likes to call herself a wedding designer, right? But in reality, I think she's somebody who brings somebody else's story to life in spaces. That's the one thing she truly enjoys doing, and I think she's really proud of the fact that she's been able to do this for a lot of special somebodies in the last decade of Indian weddings. That's the way it is. The art is seen more than the artist, and that is every artist's dream. So two of the most, prevalent weddings that you may have seen Devika's work at are Virat Kohli and Anushka Sharma's wedding in 2017, and most recently in 2021, Rajkumar and Patrilika's wedding. But beyond that, Devika really loves her plants. I would know. I live literally in a house surrounded by them. She loves our dog. We love our dog. And the dog literally has transformed our lives. Now, as for my side of this story, I am Joseph Radhik. I am a wedding photographer. I have been so for the last 13 years. January 2nd, 2010 is when I shot my first wedding. So we are sitting...
Congratulations on 13
Thank you.
years.
13 years. And but I'm more popularly known for my company, which is Stories by Joseph Radhik. It's a small logo that prides itself to have been on some of the most known photos of the last decade. Most recently would be Vicky, Kaushal and Katrina Kaif's wedding. And if you're tuning in from the south, you've seen our work with Nayanthara's wedding. And yes, Virat Kohli and Anushka Sharma's wedding as well. But Stories is a dream that was founded by my brother and I, Joshua, exactly 10 years ago, December 31st, 2012. And we are very happy that we get to run a company that is, I think, 25 of us today, who most of whom have stuck around for the large part of the decade, which is very rare in this side of the industry. As we turn 10, together with us, 4 other photographers will be turning 10, which is an incredible blessing. That's the best introduction I can give to our work.
That is the best. Thank you so much. And we are going to dive right into all these stories that clearly, are common to both of you all and not right after this quick break.
Hey everyone, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. We have a special announcement introducing Club Paisa Vaisa, where you get episodes of Paisa Vaisa 3 days before release, bonus and ad-free content, and access to the full show archive. So get your yearly membership today for only rupees $6.99. Log on to club.ivmpodcast.com/Paisa Vaisa. On Cock and Bull, Noel and Abbas join Cyrus as they talk about a viral video of a Bengaluru man throwing cash from a flyover and a Mumbai girl ordering an expensive biryani from Bengaluru as she was drunk. On Pulyabazi, Saurabh, Khyati and Pranay shed light on ongoing tension between the judiciary and the legislative over the doctrine of basic structure of our constitution. On Think Fast, Varun and Suchita discuss Netflix co-founder Reed Hastings relinquishing his role as co-CEO but will continue as executive chairman, and coffee brand Blue Tokai raising $30 million funding, and much more. And on This Round is on Me, Gauri talks to Shinjini Kumar, co-founder of My Salt app, about women and how they manage their finances. Once again, do not forget to visit our merch store on ivmpodcast.com. We have got some super cool and exciting stuff over there for you and your loved ones. Follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. If you like our shows, then do not forget to spread the word. It really helps us a lot. And of course, make sure to rate and review our shows on whatever platform you are listening to them. All our video shows are also available on youtube.com/IVM Podcasts. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week, Yono SBI, Capgemini and HDFC Mutual Fund. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Welcome to the show, both of you all. Welcome back, rather. And, first of all, thank you again for those amazing introductions. It's fabulous having you both here. But my first question is, when did you guys get married? 3 years?
2017.
2017. So five, 6 years.
Yes.
Who on earth took on the challenge of designing and photographing your wedding?
So when we got married, our only condition was that our wedding should not feel like work. as two people who work in the wedding industry, it's very easy to sort of misplace yourself and think that we're going to make a big hoo-ha about it. I think our priority was family. Joe put down a couple of conditions, which was we're not paying for a venue, we're not going over the top, we're not getting hydrangeas, let's not sort of. And we got married at a notice of, I think, 2 months.
2 months.
2 months, literally.
Exactly.
We got engaged in December, we got married in Feb. Month and a half, actually. We got married in my aunt's farm. We just had enough time for her to grow mustard for me. So we would have loved to get married in lavender fields or something romantic like that. But the only thing that grows in Itonja is mustard. So literally she transformed her wheat field into a field of mustard for us. I forgot centerpieces that day. So someone from my team called me while I'm getting my makeup done saying, Devika, did you think about flowers? I was like, no, just like go to a nursery and get some arrangements.
Pluck some of those mustard
yeah,
flowers.
just like find something and put it on the table. I think the focus for our wedding was not decor at all. It was just the idea of people coming together, having loads of fun. Food was a very important part of our wedding. My dad made sure that there was nothing that was repeated across the 4 days that our wedding was over. I think that was it, and we were very lucky because we actually got friends of ours to shoot our wedding.
Yes. So I think the first rule that I set down for the photography aspect was that my colleagues, whom I literally work every year, I wanted them to just celebrate the wedding, right? And I didn't want them to be working. Because of which I invited one of my biggest inspirations in wedding photography down from Canada. So they came down all the way from Calgary, Alberta, from the Banff Lake to Itonja, Lucknow. And they carted their family of 4 down all across. So to, their daughter, their son, this is Erica and Lanny Mann. So they photographed all 3 days of our wedding in Lucknow. It was a very different perspective on our own wedding. And it's the kind of photos that I guess I would least expect from my own wedding, right? But alongside that, I couldn't keep my colleagues out of it. I think one of them was shooting all through the wedding day. And they photographed all through the Sangeet as well, because Sangeet was much larger. I think it had like 600
I think
guests.
I remember one of friends who works with Joe walked in when I was getting my makeup done saying, I have to do your portraits. And I was like, but you don't have to. She's like, yeah, but I need to. I can't keep my hands off my camera. So I think with a phone, or she's carrying a tiny camera with her, she took my portraits.
Wedding photographers are not the best wedding guests.
Yeah.
put
Neither
it
are
that
wedding
way.
designers.
So I have to tell you what happened at our wedding. My sister's a writer. She's with the Times of India. Spent 25 years with them. And and this was 12 years ago. And, I had no clue about wedding planning, and I wasn't about to get a wedding planner and, get into that whole thing. So it was a very we were in the middle of building out our restaurant. And so, obviously it was all energies on that. And the wedding was just like, okay, we've got to get this done. And my mom was like, so she asked my sister, do you know anyone? And my sister pointed her to one of the photojournalists at the Times of India. And so a lot of our wedding photographs are these very, unconventional, almost, sort of newspaper-like quality, very interesting. And then I did have my cousin doing the more conventional photographs, which eventually made it to the album. But it was hilarious because, we just had... And she's a veteran photojournalist who covered... 2611. She was just, she was at the Taj. And so it was just a very unique album that got to get put together after our wedding. But, yes, fun. And, I think you capture those memories if they're taken with the right intent and a good heart, right? So coming back to you guys, and, you went from English literature major to wedding planning. Not conventional. I'm the last one who should be talking about conventional moves, but how did that happen?
I think the honest answer to that is I've always been obsessed with weddings. I think I was 10 years old when I attended my first wedding, and I remember till date how I felt. I'm that auntie who basically, if you tell me you're getting married, I'll sit in your house and be like, so what's happening? What are you planning? What are you wearing? So I think it's always been part of my genes. I come from a large family, so celebrations are a very big thing. But I think when you're 18, you're not thinking in a more straightforward way, right? I think you go with what you want to do. You list out, you go to a career planner, and I found a very long-winded route. So I decided to pursue literature. I love reading. I love stories. I love the idea of research. So that's how I wound up doing literature. I wanted to be a journalist. And then literally after, I think 18, began like a series of experiments with my own life, where I tried being a journalist, I tried being a teacher, I tried being an artist. I can't draw to save my life. That didn't work out. And after this very long-winded pathway, I found weddings. I think I think I enjoy doing spaces. That's just one of, it's like, everybody has a little superpower. And mine is that I can walk into a room and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to make this lovely. I'm going to elevate this space, see what I can do with it. And I think that's just a very long way of just, Venn diagram after Venn diagram, where you find that middle point is how I found weddings.
So how did you come across doing your first one? Like, how did it happen?
So I worked with someone in Delhi for 4.5 years. I literally walked into her office and I said, I think you should give me a job. And she was very kind. She said, okay, let's see what we can do. And I started as an intern. I passed out as a senior designer. And when I moved out because Pinterest had come to India. And all Indian weddings were about ball gowns and pearls and cages. And we've all seen those photos, so you know exactly what I mean. And I started out because I wanted to create weddings which were more personal, which were more thoughtful. I didn't know the names of most of the couples I designed weddings for when I worked for that firm. So I wanted to work in a way where I got to know the people I worked with more. I put all my literature knowledge to use because I brought in research. We started working with a lot more craft. We come from a beautiful country. I wanted to see how we can adapt those things. And I remember one of the first goals I put down for my own company was Pinterest should have Indian weddings. I want to see more weddings like the way I see around me on Pinterest. And I'm so glad that I think almost a decade down, we're there. Right? When I type something as simple as a Jaimal, I get 30,000 options on Pinterest. And I think that's a great thing that's happened. So I think that's a very short version of a very long journey.
What about you?
Okay. So I'm
born with the camera in your hand.
I come from a very conventional South Indian story, right? Where you're taught that if you're not a doctor or an engineer, you're worthless, right? So I'm an engineer. My sister's a doctor. It's just as obvious as it gets, right? But I got into weddings at the same time that my sister got married, right? So it's been 20 years with a camera. 2001 is when I picked up a camera, right? So it's always been a side hobby kind of thing. Never a side hustle, as they call it. Because back in the day, hobbies used to be just hobbies. You didn't have to monetize them, right? So photography was my biggest hobby, among other things, right? So my sister got married. I was assigned the task of finding a wedding photographer for her in 2008. And back then there was nobody. There was literally, I Googled, I think 3 names came up, all 3 were booked out. The only thing, and then I removed the term India from the search string.
There was 0.
No, there was so much.
Oh.
Internationally.
Oh, you mean you removed it? Yeah.
Removed the term India. And there was so much of wedding photography globally, right? And it was stunning. It's a genre I did not expect to exist, right? Forget even like having aesthetic standards or anything. And frankly, I was obsessed. I tried wedding photography at a friend's wedding. My biggest fear was not how I'll make the photos. That was easy because I was coming in with nearly a decade of living with a camera, right? My biggest fear was, will I enjoy being a part of somebody else's celebration? Right? It's easy being a guest because you can be peripheral. You can choose how much you want to be in or out of the action, right? But as a photographer, there is no choice. You either have to fake it, but you have to be part in order to make the most interesting photos, right? So you have to enjoy weddings to be a wedding photographer, okay? And I didn't know whether I would. Well, flash news, after having that one, I was like, shit, this is fun, right? So the next 14 months, I think I moonlighted shooting weddings on the side till a point came where I had to quit. And I think my bosses were super helpful because they knew I was 25 and they knew what, was necessary. Like, they're like, this is the right age, Joe. If you don't make this leap now, you'll never make it. I vividly remember I was booked for 14 weddings by the time I quit. So I had a solid cushion, right? I have to also now tell you about the third factor. The third factor is that, and there's a fourth factor also. It was the time when social media really took off in India. We all had Facebook accounts. Orkut was dying, right? Twitter was just coming to life. But Facebook page did everything for me. Everybody knew my story. By the day I quit, I put up a Facebook status saying, full-time professional photographer. Somebody picked it up and wrote a blog about it. Somebody read that blog and invited me to a CNN IBN interview.
You're kidding.
I am not kidding. This is the exact sequence of events. There was a TV camera at a wedding that I'm shooting, taking my interview and shooting me 15 days after I quit, right? I was an oddity.
That is the kind of publicity no one can buy,
And
honestly.
absolutely, because the story was bizarre in
Yeah.
2009. Okay, I am grad picks up wedding photography full time. That was a headline, right? Today it is no longer a headline, but 14 years ago it was a headline. Basically, I call this the India effect, right? Something odd somebody picks up and then it blows up. It blew up to the level that I remember coming back from that wedding and that the piece airing. The Hindu, Reuters, Economic Times, everyone got in touch saying, "Sir, we want a piece. We'll do a story on you," etc. I still remember this headline that Hyderabad Times did, which said the new face of wedding photography, and my face was there. I was like, okay then, right?
I love it.
So a couple of things. So the next 3 months changed my life. I quit my job to do wedding photography for fun. Right, and I knew that it had a sustainable income, which was the pitch I gave my dad. Literally, I'm telling you the pitch, right? But that wasn't at all what happened. What happened due to this media exposure? First, I was contacted by 2 celebrities within the first 3 months of quitting. I'm glad to say that in 2023, everybody knows this guy who, I'm sitting here, pan India, everybody knows him. I shot Allu Arjun's wedding in March 2011, right? And it was huge. I think all of Hyderabad knew me, all of Andhra knew me, all the whole of South India knew me, because they were like, what are these wedding kind of photos? We've never seen anything like this, right? And within a span of 6 months, I also shot Ram Charan's wedding. Everybody knows him from RRR now, right? At the same time, I think I shot some of the biggest HNI weddings that are happening back then. I'm not a fan of that word because it reminds me of business school pitch slides. But I did shoot, I think in my first year, I would have shot the 6 biggest weddings that came across. Since then, it was a juggernaut. I think the fourth biggest factor was the fact that one of the grooms that I was shooting took me aside and actually gave me literally sat with me for 1 hour and said that you're doing the wrong thing. I was the solo operator back then, right? And he said, if you have family, they should join you and you should start a company, okay? And he was giving literally free advice, right? And he's like, otherwise I'll buy you out if you're open to it. I was like, okay. So I came back and I told my brother of this bizarre conversation that I had. As you would expect, my brother is also software engineer, business school grad, working with Asian Paints at that time. But he was like, okay, this sounds like a plan. So he spoke to my dad, did a pitch, spoke to his boss at Asian Paints.
Not without the pitch.
Not without the pitch, never without the pitch. And he's the guy who founded Stories. So my name is on the company name, but Stories is entirely Joshua's idea. The idea was to build a legacy beyond us. So in case I ever decide to quit wedding photography, Stories will go on, hopefully, God willing, beyond my time. That is the idea. 10 years on, we find ourselves where, it's common for us to say we've shot the most notable weddings, but that is not really what we want to be known for. What we want to be known for is pretty much the same thing that you said. I think in 2009, when I Googled my wedding photography for my sister's wedding, there was not a single sherwani and lehenga that turned up, right? In Google Images. It was always white
weddings,
white gown, black tuxedo, right? And I think 13 years later of me shooting weddings, 10 years of Stories, and the Indian wedding photography scene having exploded, it's a very different scene now. And it's some of the most beautiful Indian wedding photography you will see, right? Globally. I think that's what we want to be known for.
What have you done differently that makes your work stand out?
I think when you're starting out, you're not thinking of making a brand, and that's the reality
Absolutely.
of it, right? You just put your head down, you do the work, and you hope things work
Yeah.
out. You're not thinking about money, you're not thinking about brand, you're just like, let's get through this. Let's
Yeah.
see if we have enough work, people like our work, things like that. But I think what has helped us are 2 things. One is that and this is a parallel learning, because I think when I started my company, I began dating you within a year of that. So there's always...
Did you meet on at a
Yes.
Of
wedding?
course, we go
met at a
nowhere
Oh my
else.
God, this
Yeah.
is such a cliched story.
We don't have a life
guys.
outside of weddings.
We don't go anywhere else. So if I hadn't met him, we would have both been unmarried, because he would just be sitting
Yeah.
backstage at some wedding.
This is a Bollywood movie in the making. I just want you to know, with a great looking wedding thrown in.
One of the things that has been very helpful is I have a great team as well. They're all trained architects, trained interior designers. They don't come from the world of weddings, so they bring an incredible perspective into what we do. And because of that, we've been able to carve a niche for ourselves of weddings that look different. Fun fact, we don't look at Pinterest when we design weddings. We think of some things, we engage with local art, local craft. So I think just by sheer thought process, we're very different from the way other wedding companies work, and that's helped us a lot. And like I said, there was this parallel sort of learning of saying, get the good guys in, make sure they know better than you know, that kind of thing, and do better. And I think some portion of it is just serendipity. Is just like and I know I asked you this the minute I walked in, saying, how do you know of us? And I ask every single bride and groom I work with, saying, how do you find us? Because in my head, I still live in a cave under a table, and I'm just there doing good work. And I love that we've been able to find more people like us. I remember when I started out, I made a list of people like us. Like, what would my dream bride be? I'm married to an engineer who makes pitches, so that sort of percolated back here. So I literally made it literally like a checklist, saying my kind of bride will have these things, down to what kind of lehenga she'd pick, what kind of band she'd have. And I think what's worked for me is I found lots of people like me, and they've pitched their bets on us. We haven't found fans of our work. We've literally found patrons who were like, we love what you did for us, and now we're going to adopt you, and you will do everything else around us and make our world better, our friends' worlds better. So I think it's just been A, being able to do unique work, and B, making the people we work for very happy with our work. So I don't care if it's a celebrity, it's not a celebrity. I think as long as my brides are ridiculously happy with what we deliver, I think that's literally all that we're here to do.
And it's so funny because we'll put all sorts of boxes and labels around ourselves to not sound like wedding photographers, contemporary, candid. Boss, I'm a wedding photographer.
Yeah.
Shadi photo wala. I'm happy to be that guy, because I believe that for the last, I think, half a century, for 50 years now, we have been, as a country, there's incredible documentation of Indian culture hidden away in living rooms and bedrooms, because you have albums just sitting there. If somebody does a project which opens those albums up, incredible. I mean, everything from fashion to the ongoing Bollywood trends at that
That's so
time, to
true.
hairstyles, to
Food.
makeup, to food, to religion,
Aesthetics.
to
Deco, everything.
to avant-garde people who said that screw this, I'm going to have a completely different kind of wedding, back in the 70s, right? And it's so sad because the people who documented all of that are never, like, I mean, they're the last person in the chain who's
You've moved the bar a
yes, I
little
have.
bit.
And I will,
Yeah.
yes, I have. And I will hope to continue to
Yeah.
push that, right? But I mean, that was the way it was at the beginning. Okay, so I think I'll tell you what makes us, what we did not consciously do, and yet somehow ended up doing. Okay, weddings in general are filled, the wedding industry is filled with a lot of thought of money, number one, which fuels a sense of cynicism. Okay, I think what makes us different is we do weddings because we freaking love them.
But I think there is this perception that, like, why does a,
Yes.
whatever photographer cost so
Yes.
much? And-
Finally, artists are getting their due.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Yes, that's an idealistic
No,
way
but
of
there is
looking
a
at
whole
it.
range, right? So now,
Correct,
and I
but-
get there's a whole range of quality, there's a whole range of
Correct.
skill, experience.
It's a scale.
yeah. So how would you, how do you deal with that question of, like, but why does it?
Initially, I used to feel guilty. Okay, I mean, come on, I'll be very honest. Like, I used to feel guilty. I was like, putting a price out there for my own work made me feel both guilty as well as conscious, to the level that, okay, fine, I'll do it for this much, right? I think the biggest learning was separate the artist from the pay scale or the fee, right? Time is the currency we sell, not skill. Okay, and we have limited time. At the end of the day, I have about 80 to 90 working shoot dates that I can give to a year. and that is the amount that I have to charge,
Hmm.
right, to do everything else that I want to do with my life.
Do you feel the same way?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think one of the things I learned is not to be embarrassed about money. And as a female leading a company, I think women are very embarrassed to talk about money. We're very embarrassed to ask for money. My business managers are women, so the first thing when they walk into office, I tell them, "You're owed this money. You're going to make sure you get it, and you don't have to be embarrassed about asking for what you're due." Much like him, I don't think I've ever thought about how much other people are charging. And I came from the wedding industry when I started, and the fact is, there was no wedding designer when I started. I literally coined the term for myself because I hated planning. I couldn't care whether cars arrived or they didn't, because the logistics of it just blew my mind. It's not that I didn't know how to do it, I didn't want to do it. So I used to walk into meetings saying, "I'm a designer. This is how much I charge, and I don't do this portion." So I think I spent the first couple of years just explaining to people what I did, because literally that
Or
term
what you
was
don't do.
correct.
Yeah.
It was literally a figment of my imagination, because like, I don't want to do this. Here's an Excel sheet. I do this. I don't do this. Please find someone to do the other portion of it. So I had no yardstick of how much a wedding designer should ask for. Is it 50% of what a planner charges because you only do 50% of their work? There was no math to the equation. I also don't come from a business school, so I had no understanding of how much I should earn, because I trained to be a journalist. I mean, there's no way,
There's no earning
parity.
there.
Right? There's no parity to, even now, I think once every couple of years I walk up to all my friends from school and college saying, "Guys, how much do you make?"
Oh,
because
God.
how much should I be making? So it's just, I'm that awkward person at dinner who'll be like, "Hey, how much money do you guys make, and how much should you make at a certain age?" Because there's no yardstick that I had. What changed for me when it came to money was hiring a team, because I was very clear that I wanted my team to have my life when they were reaching those sort of like checklist points, right? At 25, you should be able to have those things, or have the things you want to have. And I think that's how our finances are driven. That's how our fees is driven. We only do 10 weddings a year. The last year has been
I was
different.
going to ask about that. but
Correct.
yeah.
And we do it because that's all that we can do well. I have a tremendous respect for people who do 100 a year, right? Because I know it takes guts, it takes a certain drive. It's very exhausting more than anything else. I'm sure the money is great as well. But I'm very clear what I can do, and I'm very honest about it. And I think when you're running a business, you have to be very honest about what you can and cannot do. And I've been like that from day one, saying this is how much I can do well. And maybe I'd rather do something small well than do a lot many things that I can't do well. Because we do this for the love of it first, right? So if you're not getting the joy back, if the person across the table is not ridiculously happy, is the only place I'm willing to settle for. I'm not happy for, yeah, it was okay, it was cute. No. You have to be like obsessed with me and your own wedding, right? So I think that was able to fix things for us.
So you both, I know you do, like you said, you have 80 or 90 days of shoot time, which is probably what, like 30, 40 weddings?
No,
if that?
it's again 10 weddings.
10 weddings. Okay, so you're both doing 10 weddings a year. You've definitely, you're not in the pitching zone. No more pitches for you. But it's the other way around, where I'm sure you have a long queue of people wanting you to do their weddings. How do you pick the weddings that you
Whoever's
take on?
paid the advance.
Yeah,
first.
it's really, that's it for
Really?
it.
That's it. That's it. And a lot of.
Come on, there must be people who are like,
No, yeah.
using all the
No.
influence and all the...
I'm being very stubborn in answing this because
You're being very modest.
No,
Come on.
very stubborn actually, because I'll tell you why. Because because we are known for our celebrity work, especially due to the last half a decade, right? People assume that we set aside dates, or we keep those
Block
priority.
those dates. Yeah.
We don't. In 2021, right? I think Stories photographed 5 celeb weddings, 4 of which I was not present physically. I was not the leader at those weddings. I'm not the director. Shivali from my team was the one who led those weddings. The bride only knew her. In fact, in the first month when we shot, I think Varun Dhawan's wedding, Varun Natasha's, Varun has never spoken to me. He doesn't even know I exist. He does know Shivali. He does know Jameer. That was always been the dream. I was shooting a wedding in Jodhpur because that bride Nancy hired us, I think, a year in advance, because they come with American values, and they're like, we need to put the venue down, etc. And somebody else decided late. So if you've paid in advance, you booked us. Simple.
That's literally
It keeps life so simple. We have, I think, over a long term, literally over a decade, understood slowly that a bride, irrespective of whether you're booking, at the value level in wedding photography or at the highest level, the product or service is a very sentimental one, irrespective of how much you're paying. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
I mean, it's the one thing that lasts well beyond the event is over.
It's
as well.
not just that. I'm not talking of photography. I'm talking of every decision when it comes to weddings.
Right.
Is sentimental. Right?
Of course.
It's emotional. Right? It's my big day.
It's the big day.
Correct?
Yeah.
So whether you're spending 10,000 or 10 lakhs, it doesn't matter. Right? Every bride needs the same amount of attention. Right? And if they do, then I don't want any bride who comes to stories to feel like they're hiring an a la carte. I mean, not an a la carte. They're hiring somebody who's just like stories. They're hiring actual people. Because the alternative to us...
So it's a capacity-related thing, that this is the capacity you have, and that's as simple as that. If
It's
you're
as
not
simple
there,
as
you're
that.
not there, period.
Yes, I don't want to be in two places at one time. And I don't
You
ever...
can't be. I mean,
Correct.
you can't. Yeah.
And
You won't do justice to either, basically. Yeah.
Overall, I think more than our photos, it's the relationships
Yeah.
why they keep coming back to us, right? For me, what matters is that one happy client. A lot like the plants in our house, we have noticed how slowly watering them and giving them a lot of love, each of our clients, leads to this massive network over 10 years, which is just unassailable, right? We can happily shut down Instagram. We do not need social media. We do not need PR. What we do need to do is keep that core bunch of happy clients very happy, and they'll keep coming back.
You also have limited the number of weddings you do in a year, and but you are building a team. Why sort of restrict what you do if you can build a team?
So unlike him, all my work happens before a wedding. And sometimes it spans for a year. There are weddings I've been designing for 15 months, 16 months, which is why there are time lap to it, because we may have 3 weddings in December, but we've been working on those 3 weddings for 6 months. Right? So I can't be in 2 places at once. And we made a decision very early on that we're a boutique firm. If we're not available, we're not available. I don't want to split myself. I don't want to split my team. We're at one place, focused on one thing, and to me, it doesn't matter who you are at all. What I make for you is far more valuable than who you are. And like I said, because I started at a time when there was enough around, there's a part of me which is very clear that there are other people who offer similar services. There's enough sun for all of us, and we'll all get whoever we want to work with, right? We've never rejected a client, right? Rejected a client based on anything except for not having time for them, right? I have also picked up the phone and called people saying, I cannot take up your wedding no matter who you are, because I don't have the time to design it, because what we do takes an awful amount of time. We are perfectionists, so we like to do it to the T.
No compromise, mindset here, and the focus that you
Correct.
give each
Because
of your projects.
like
Which
Joe said, for me, it's a doubly more emotional journey because I'm with a family for 6 months. I've had my 3 a.m. calls with a bride who's just like, that shade of blue is not me. Walk me through what are the other blues we can do, right? I'm available for them. So it's also not just physically taxing, but also emotionally taxing, because I'm working with a full family over a period of time, right? And like Joe said, that relationship is far more important to us and far more valuable to us than just numbers. And the one thing we've not done is reduced our business to numbers. Numbers are important in a business, but it's not just numbers. It's everything else.
It's not the number one
correct.
priority.
And we're here today, and you'll understand this also. The food has to be good. It doesn't matter who you served, where you served it, how you served it. If the food is not good, nothing else works.
The numbers are there actually. The numbers for us, and there are, it's about X number of successful, fulfilling relationships in a year, right? Whatever it is, like if it's 10, I want 10 out of 10. We are not a Yelp business, and we do not have scale, and there is no way we can have scale. Okay, you pick either scale or satisfaction, one of those things, right?
No, I mean, we know it's a family affair. I've sort of been through it myself, and for the most part, you think it's mostly up to, it's the bride and groom's big day. But how do you all deal with that? I mean, maybe more for you because you start getting involved a lot earlier than, maybe Joe's role. How does that dynamic work for you?
I actually love it. I love being.
You're not
with-
dealing with all the dramas and the sagas.
I love the drama too.
Oh, okay. So you're just made for this. This is great.
The thing is, when you come from a large family, you're used to it. You're used to doing the juggle of the two. It's a rope act, right? You have to maintain the balance between them. But I think that's what makes it fun. I love that a bua will call me tomorrow saying, I'm buying flowers for my house. What do I buy? And that's what I love about what I do, is that I know that in every city of the country, I have a home to go to. And those homes are not just bride and grooms, they're extended family. Someone's flying in from London tomorrow. Groom's best friend is texting me saying, I'm flying down. Where should I go? Let's meet for dinner. What can I bring for you?
But
And
I mean more like the sort of the polar opinions and,
The
the stressful part, not so much the friendly part.
I think it's become a part of my being, so it doesn't bother me. I shouldn't say at all, but it's a
It does bother you, but
yeah,
not
it's,
so
it's,
much.
It's a part of the process.
You've learned how to deal with
Correct.
it.
And I think if you view it as just a part of the process, like Joe said, it's very emotional. And I think when something is that emotionally charged, there are bound to be polar decisions, there are bound to be face-offs. But that's the fun of it, right? I think just the fact that everybody, it's like the minute you announce there's a wedding in the house, now the whole family descends. You may not have met them for a couple of years. And to me, that's very special. That's part of... that's a huge reason for what I do. And I actually enjoy that portion of it. And I think it's important as an expert to be able to draw people's opinion back to what matters and not let them get carried away. And I think that's what grounds me when I'm making decisions for other people, because at the end of the day, a lot of my job is to make decisions for somebody else, right? That's why they've hired me. I'm the expert on the table. And I think as long as you're able to communicate well with every one of them, as long as you're there to make sure that your communication is not triggering them against each other.
But come on, you've got to give me some masala. Tell us some bridezilla or groomzilla stories. Come on.
No, so-
you were like, I don't have any. I'm like,
I
No,
can't.
Gauri,
impossible. You
I've-
have to.
I do this for a living, right? I'm getting married and I'm getting my makeup done. The makeup artist, my friend, the photographer, our friend, Joe's getting dressed literally there. And I get a call saying X has not reached site to deliver Y. We need you to yell at them because they're not going to come till you don't make that call.
I don't think anybody said we need you to yell at them. I think she did it of her own
That
volition.
was the understanding you had.
So
That was
it
your
was really funny
interpretation.
because I picked up the phone and I'm blasting someone on the phone.
No, wait 1 second. Blasting is a very mild. Doesn't matter, okay? Imagine the angriest person you've ever seen.
Times like a million.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is with like the word rage is perfectly defined.
I
right?
have
Shut up.
moments
2
like
seconds.
that.
This is
your moment. Go
Yeah,
for it.
anyhow. So I've hung up on that person and then I look at Vipul who's doing my makeup saying, God, I love this shade of red you've put on my lips. Can you tell me how to make it or what have you used to do?
And he's like, that's your natural, like,
Vipul knows
showing
it.
up.
Erica's, I can see her slowly going behind a curtain because she's not used to India and Indian brides. And she's looking at Joe saying, is she bipolar? How can she be shouting at someone and then complimenting someone? And I'm like, I'm not angry at him.
That was Lani.
That was
Erica was
Lani.
enjoying it.
Oh, Lani's like, are you sure you want to marry her? Saying, what just happened? And I was like, it's fine. We're all two different people together. But literally in that moment, and I could feel myself being that person saying, why am I shouting? But just some things you're required to do. And I think our brides are in a similar position. And I think it's unfair to judge them and make them as like coffee conversation. Because I think we've all been in that spot. We both have tremendous empathy for other brides and grooms since we've got married. I think we see it from their perspective. We spend far too much time with them to be able to judge them, right? They're friends. If nothing else, we come out hopefully as friends. So there's a sense of understanding of where they're coming from. And I think a large part of our jobs is to be able to filter that, what you would typically call as tantrumy or dramatic behavior, to what they actually want. I'll bring you to a very interesting joke. When we got married, my grandmother called me and said, I was telling her I want to marry him or whatever. She's like, has he heard you shout? I was like, yeah, he's been on site with me. He's seen the worst of me.
Shout at him.
We were at a vacation at my sister's place in the US, okay? And she was on a quote-unquote work call, okay? And once...
People will think I have
No,
wage issues.
as she was going
Why?
on the
I
work
wonder
call,
why.
my sister comes up to me and she's like, you know, is she like this with you also?
It's like, I'm sure
Are
everyone thinks
you
I'm
okay?
Yeah, like I'm like, you know,
If you ever need to talk.
I was
exactly.
I was thrilled. My parents in the last 2 years have spent a couple of months with us. And one day my mother actually heard Joe on a work call. And she's like, oh, it's okay. I understand now.
It's not just you.
Yeah.
Here,
It's okay.
I think going
It's
back
not only my child.
going back to the tenet
Yeah.
or that fundamental thing that you put in your head, that emotionally charged events, which is not the case across many industries. I would name probably 2 or 3 industries which have the level of stress that we operate with on the days we work, right? And from there to go to complete, I think there's this documentary that Coldplay did when in 2012 when they shot their Milo Xyloto album, right? It's a beautiful film. And Chris Martin talks about how once you get off the stage, you know, it's so much energy, so much unbelievable aura. And from there, within 30 minutes, they're in this quiet hotel room where the tinnitus, it's still ringing in their heads. You have to go through that entire phase. It's exactly the same with
There
us.
is a low.
There
What
is a
people don't
massive
talk
low.
about is there is a low after a wedding.
Like
Yeah.
the
'Cause you
anticlimax. in a
Yeah,
way.
there's sometimes when you're driving back to the airport,
And
you're
you're like,
driving
it's
back to
over.
home, and you can feel the high in you and you can feel it going down.
We've shot all of that and we don't walk away with that marriage that they got.
Yeah.
Right? But to be fair, that's what it is. We participate in at least 10 highs a year, right? At least. And then from there, we have to completely switch off. Right? So there is, I mean, that's why the term, I mean, to use a Gen Z term, I cringe at the word bridezilla. Right? Because I'm like, dude, put yourself in their damn shoes, man. They're going to
Okay,
go
but
through
what
it.
about like other like things? I mean, of course, things are bound to go wrong, right? I
Yes.
mean, like I'm sure, especially in your sort of, you know, from a design perspective. I mean, have you just like mastered the art of, you know,
Zen.
of well, I wasn't going to say Zen, but I was going to say of thinking on your feet and how, or you know,
I think you have to learn.
Have you had like some serious boo boos happen, and then you're just like,
all
it
of
happened. This is
all-
life.
all of it and some more.
Okay, now at least
Right.
tell me, give me
So-
something.
Nature
there,
is your
Give me
greatest
some
enemy.
fodder
1 second.
here.
Just, I'm 7 years old as a company.
8 years old.
In the last 7 years, my venue's been washed out. There's been cyclones. My kitchen has got burnt when the barat was walking through. The groom has been missing at a mendi. The bride didn't
Okay, I
think
like
the shade
this.
of blue is just her.
The bride didn't find her lehenga.
The bride didn't find a lehenga.
Was this close to wearing her aunt's lehenga?
This close to bald so much that her makeup had to be done twice. And these are just stories off the top of my head. There was a riot. A tent got blown away because there was a cyclone.
Oh, yes. My
What do you
photographer nearly got pummeled by that tent.
These are just a day in my life. They're not like individual units. This is just the level of excitement I operate in.
Do you walk around with that thing, that little like whatever it's called,
I
like a little
don't
fanny
have
pouch
to.
with like things
It's
in
like
it,
if something
with like all the like you
You
see
know
in the
how-
movies.
if something happened now, I'd be able to fix it in like 10 minutes because I operate on, you know how
You're
people
almost like
have a
wired to like
correct.
deal
You
with
know
things
how
going
everyone has a
wrong.
plan A and B. I have a plan down to Z because that's just how I live, and I've always been like this. Like rain doesn't baffle me at all. Cyclones are cute.
And now you've probably like figured out to check the
Correct.
weather
And
forecast
I work
maybe
with
before.
but I also work with Indian artists. A very large part of what I do is that I work with karigars, I work with artists. I'm used to human imperfections. A gentleman could have been making this glass all his life, but on the day of the wedding, he may decide to make another design just because he felt like it and deliver it. Right? Or you may have ordered red flowers and pink ones arrive, and that's just it. I think it's very easy to give yourself the kind of self-importance that what you do is changing the world. Right? And I have this very acute understanding that what I'm doing is for fun, it's for someone else's celebration, it's serious, important work. They've hired me as an expert, but nothing is, doctors do important work, firefighters do important work. If pink flowers arrive in place of red, it's going to work out, guys. If a venue gets washed out, I have 2 levels of backup. As long as I have the trust by the family to make those decisions and the bandwidth to make them, I think we're in a good place.
What about?
We are problem solvers.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's the thing that we don't label ourselves as, because it sounds far less sexier than artists, right? But that's what we are.
Yeah.
Okay, and we are problem solvers with a ticking time limit.
Yeah.
Right? There is no we'll figure it out later for us, which also means that any altercation that you might have, okay, of any sort, always needs to be put with the clear emphasis on the fact that this is happening, this wedding, right? And you can solve this later. First, get the wedding done with, right? There's this incredible photo that I have, and I'm shamelessly saying it's incredible, right? It's a bride and groom standing in what seems to be a mirrored tunnel with lights, with these beautiful lights hung up, and it's a reflection of the lights everywhere, and they're in this really nice embrace, and there's light coming in from behind them. That photo has won me multiple awards. Okay, what people don't know is that alongside me when I'm taking that photo are 27 other photographers. Okay, it's just because overzealous uncle booked an entire team. The mom said, "Okay, we'll book Joseph," but
Oh, you mean not from your team? Like
absolutely
other...
not, from completely other companies. Okay, so, the mother would be like, "But Raju Bhaiya has been doing our photos shoots all the through, so unko bhi bulaiye." And Raju Bhaiya saw that Joseph is coming, so he's like, "Joseph aa raha hai to hame takkar karna chahiye, hame badi team leke jayenge." I'm like, all that jazz, and there's just me shooting with this, and this is not one time. It happens many times. My take is, am I going to be the guy who will say, "No, I cannot do this"?
It's either me or no one else.
Am I going to be that guy? Or I'm going to be like, "Dude, it's your wedding day. Shelve this. Have a conversation about it later. But this is not the time to talk about it."
Yeah.
When you're walking into your Sangeet, you should be thinking of the fun you're going to have, your Dadima in the front row, right? The steps you're not going to fuck up. All of those things. But you don't need to be worrying about the fact that a photographer is going to walk out on you, right?
But I think what Joe said in a very fun way is the reality of it is your service providers at the end of the day. That's just it. No one cares how fancy you are, what fancy name you give yourself. I think that's not the place to throw a tantrum.
Yeah.
You're there to deliver on a service. You've been hired because you're good at delivering a service, and
Professional.
Exactly. We're experts. I think that's the one thing I will say without being humble is that we are both experts at what we do.
You're paid for being an expert.
Correct.
Yeah. And you have to, and
correct.
and thinking on your feet comes with the territory of
Correct.
being an expert.
And if you're not delivering what you were brought there to deliver, then nothing else matters.
Yeah. Isn't it sort of the obvious thing for you guys to build something together and work on weddings as a unit?
It doesn't feel obvious to either of us.
That is
We
shocking.
do the full romantic answer, I'll give.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay. We do want to build a life together. Okay.
Arre.
Because work is not that exciting to build together, I think. If you have, and I think subconsciously we've done that over the last 2 years, 3 years, especially since the pandemic, where we have, before the pandemic, we were subconsciously doing that. But after the pandemic, it's been a conscious effort where we're consciously building a better life together. And that takes...
Outside of work.
And that takes a lot of effort, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest reasonings pitches that I gave to my family when I was, making them understand why I was marrying this girl from Lucknow, right? It wasn't an option. I wasn't asking them. I was telling them I was doing so. Was that, listen, she's from my industry and she's the only one who will understand the weird ass life that I lead, right? A life that makes me, stay in very nice destinations and party till 5 a.m., right? Or go for meetings even at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. because that's just the way my clients are, right? And a life that keeps me at home for at best 50, 60 days a year, right? And I'm always going to, it seems like my life is a hell of a party, right? How do you explain? And then on the flip side, her life seems even better because she does the same party 5 times because she goes to n number of Rekkis or whatever it is. She understands my life, right? That's a simple thing that I told my parents. And now that I see it, because we understand our crazy work life, we just want a better life on the other side of things, right?
You've both talked a lot about your teams and how important they are and how how that's sort of made you, helped you make the brands that you are today, right? So how do you deal with sort of team churn and that aspect of people moving on, people sort of doing what you do, supposedly cheaper, but definitely not better. But how do you handle that sort of in your business? Does it not stress you out ever?
Honestly, no. I think that's the most honest answer. I'll tell you why. Because I think there's a couple of things. There's a sense of understanding that people, you're not someone else's career. And I think it's about distancing yourself and being so self-involved with thinking that someone is going to work with just your company for the rest of their lives. Because I haven't done it. So it's unfair to assume that somebody else will, right? I work for somebody else. I started out on my own. I built my own company with my own brand values and things. And I think it'll be dishonest of me to judge other people or correct other people for doing that. I think as a business owner, or as somebody who leads a creative team or a creative coach or whatever, I think it's important to be able to find the balance where people can be their own individuals and pursue their own dreams while still being aligned to your vision. But people grow out of it, and I think it's a natural process to grow out of it, move on. A lot of my team wants to do their masters. They want to go back to architecture, do other things in life, and I think that's fine. What is more important is that you still have a relationship with them and that you do it the correct way. I'm friends with my boss who I worked with. I'm friends with other people I worked with, and I think that is far more important to me, is to be able to have that relationship, to be able to sit across a table and saying, I love your work. Also say I hate your work, also say that I think you should quit or I should quit. And I think for me, they're conversations, they're not personal. I may take it personally for a short amount of time because I'm human too. But I think it's about the sense that it's unfair to assume that someone's going to spend their entire lives with you, because especially when you haven't done it.
That's absolutely fair. But how do you kind of build for it in your team? Is it a matter of, building a big enough army that kind of...
I think it's about finding that little perfect gray space where they're all aligned to your vision, but they're also their own individuals. So I think, and I'll correct myself here because for me, it's been almost a decade of learning. I used to be an awful ass boss. Okay, I sit on people's heads being like, why are you doing this? Why are you not doing this? How have you not come to office at 9:30 the way I have? But I think it's come with a sense of understanding that everybody is their own person, and even though they may work for you or with you, they're going to be their own person, and be able to give everybody the space. We have a very small team. One person leaves, it literally sets us in it's like one person, it's like a 6-man rowing team,
so
and one person stops rowing.
So how do you sort of
I think it's just
provide
about
for that?
Giving everybody enough freedom and enough space to be able to find that balance where someone says, listen, I'm not rowing today, you row. Or just sort of picking up and sticking up for each other professionally and personally. I think that is what has worked for us, at least. We now have people completing half a decade, and my numbers are really cute in front of his numbers. But I think the fact that my team is my family, they're my first call today, and I'm their first call today. When something goes south, I think it's those equations and the fact that it comes with enough space to be able to do your own things is what has worked well for us. And I also work in a creative field where I work with designers. Everyone comes with their own tantrums. Everyone comes with their own sort of opinions. Personalities. And to be able to sit across a table and be reasonable, I think is what has worked, because there's a give and take like in any relationship. And for me, it's not an employer-employee. We're a team.
Mm-hmm.
We go in it together. I have a very clear understanding that I can do nothing alone. And everyone who's working with me is doing it because we all care for the same things. The fact that I've sat with you for 2 hours today means that I have a really kick-ass team back home who's running the ship in peak wedding season, right? I think it's also being able to appreciate who we have and then respecting them for it. I think respect is one of the big things that we miss in our workspace just because we run our own teams. I think just having that, I think so far has worked for us. We don't know what the future holds.
You said I think a lot.
Yeah. You put me in a spot.
No.
I said I think a lot because I don't think I'm a champion at it. That's
Nice.
why.
I don't think anyone's a champion. I think
Very
you
nice.
as long as you
Correct.
keep your sort of
It's
eyes
a-
and ears open a little
Yeah,
bit
it's a learning
grow.
process.
Yeah.
The fact that I can see
You have to
I've-
grow with your own business. I mean, I've seen how I've
Yeah.
grown, just as a leader, for want of a better word, through the years. And I've learned a shitload on the way and made a shitload of mistakes on the way as well. But, what you're saying is so true. But it takes a lot of self-awareness as well.
It takes a lot of heartache.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it, because as someone who started as a one-man team, to just be able to share. And for me, it's a whole growth cycle of saying, this is mine, don't touch it, I like it a certain way, to saying that, hey, maybe your way is better. Right?
Yeah.
I think there's a tremendous amount of growth that comes, and that growth comes with a certain amount of heartache. I recognize now what a horrible boss I've been. Maybe in 5 years I'll be like, hey, what the hell was I doing 5 years ago, right? That's equally bad. But I think it's for me, it's a continuous learning curve, and I hope it stays that way as long as I'm on the upward growth of it.
I have very, very different answers.
Tell us.
Joshua and I, at the beginning when we started this company, we knew the only way this would work is if we had very low attrition. Okay, and we were told by multiple people that that's a fool's errand, right? There is no way you're starting a creative firm with the name of the founder on the plate, right? And then expecting people to stay, because the holy grail in creativity is freelancing on your own name, right? Or
Right.
building your name. That is
Right.
the holy grail, right? And we're like, is it really though? Because we have met enough photographers, and I'm not going to talk about anything else. I'm not going to assume anything about any other genre, but we've met enough photographers who just want to be photographers, okay? Who do not want to be client service experts, who do not want to be accounting experts, who do not want to be entrepreneurs with B school, with presentations and whatnot, who don't want to be branding specialists, right? Album designers, editors, therapists, travel planners, everything else that you have to run a wedding photography business. And because being a wedding photographer has very little to do with running a wedding photography business, right? But if you do want to be a wedding photographer and you want to do it for the sake of photography, then we're the right place to be. Okay, we'll shamelessly say it. We have limited capacity because obviously we have limited revenue, right? But if I could, I would take up the top 50 best wedding photographers to work with stories, because I know very frankly they would work with us only because we understand what the wedding photography and photography genre wants. You want the freedom to be able to go to shoot and to be the best you can be, not while thinking about the last client that you shot and all the baggage they're putting on your shoulders. Number one, right? You want to be able to have fun while you're at shoot, which is very rare when you're doing it as a profession. You also we live in the city which makes content day in and day out for the sake of money. I know so many DPs, filmmakers who are just doing it because karna hi hai, right? We're like, how about you flip the coin and say 15 times a year, 15 weddings, you just go and live your dream, right? Which is just to express yourself and to just have fun. Every job has a job aspect. Even a cricketer he has to just be a part of a boring partnership on a day, right? A bowler can't say, no, bro, I'm not feeling it, right? So that aspect we can't escape, that hygiene aspect. But everything else we can make more exciting. This comes from our previous employers, right? So Joshua used to work with Asian Paints. My first company was Colgate Palmolive, and then with Elephant Design, right? And I remember my flatmate from Procter & Gamble, his HR head for India, and my Colgate HR head as well. Both of them had this signboard in their office, okay, which said, my only goal is to make this the toughest place to quit from, okay? And being the toughest place to quit from has very little to do with the compensation that you give them. Because as you grow, you might be a 25-year-old who just wants a lot of money today. But even if you just look past that one layer, it's very easy to convince a young person also that, hey, it's not about the money. You know what you're getting here. You're getting the ability to so we have these things, we actually have these things. We have these things called creative leaves, okay? Which is the ability to take a leave, no questions asked, to do whatever the hell you want to do 10 times a quarter, okay? So Emily in Paris season 2 drops. You want to see it, take a leave. No problem.
Well, how does it affect your work though?
It doesn't affect because we have an open calendar which everybody knows what everybody is doing on that particular day, right? It's totally fine. So we're giving 40 days a year to just take a leave. Some team members bunch it all up together to take a grand holiday or go to a Vipassana retreat. No problem. Do it, right? But build a system that lets every photographer in the team live the same kind of life that you at least aspire to, right? And take all the burdens away from them. So we have a client servicing team. We have a sales team. We have all of our post-production happens in Canada. We are the reverse outsourcing. So we send it out there because the best editing happens there, right? And comes back to India. Album design is done by somebody else. So these photographers then only have to go to shoot. They have to curate the best of their photos and then move on to the next gig. The other thing we do is after each wedding day ends.
So how do you, you have 10 weddings a year. It almost sounds
that I
like...
shoot.
Oh, that you shoot.
That I shoot. Okay.
I was just in my head.
Yeah, that I
thinking.
shoot. So there are 5 directors with stories.
Right. So everyone has.
In sum total, we do about 45 weddings a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought I'd heard that number somewhere. That's why I said about 40 weddings.
So 40 is spot on.
Yeah.
Right. But the whole thing, Gauri, is designed so that we're like, if we can't sustain it, we'll charge more.
Yeah.
I'll go back to that question that I asked, right?
Yeah.
From a company POV also, it's like Joshua and I are constantly answering this question. Okay, the pool needs to be bigger. We need to charge more. How do you... And I will temper all of this, everything I've said so far, by saying that if you as the leader, as you mentioned, right, are not evolving, all of this falls. All of this absolutely falls.
So how do you guys evolve?
You have to evolve. As an artist, you have to evolve.
So how do you do that in your craft?
In my craft, as a wedding photographer, at least for me, one of the things is, I think initially it was about escalation, right? It's about just getting better and better and better, creating better photos. But like 13 years in, for me now, it's about acceptance. Okay, it's about accepting the things that I'm really good at and getting even better at those things, which is making relations, right? Finding that little sliver of a moment that happens at each wedding. Okay, there's this one photo that I'm constantly pushed by. It's a photo by Pete Souza of Barack Obama boarding Air Force One, and he has his hand out to just saying bye. Okay, and from his hand rises a rainbow, which cuts across the sky. It's an incredible shot. It's not photoshopped. It's that moment, right? And for me, whenever I see that photo, that it's a very clear depiction of everything wedding photography. It's very funny that I'm saying it, but the fact is, there are rainbows like that at every wedding. There's this impossible shot that's happening, that you as a wedding photographer, it'd be great if you found it. But just because you're chasing that rainbow doesn't mean you give up everything else at that wedding, right? So of Obama just waving at the journalist as he leaves, right? So there's a safe shot to that. So we need to ensure that the team is capable of taking the safe shot, that one of us is always chasing the rainbow. That's number one. The second is we need to believe that there are rainbows in the first place. So many times when I go and show my work, and I've shown it in so many different places, but mostly if I go to Tier B India, right? I go to Ludhiana, I go to Vijayawada, I go to Surat, right? And I'm doing a photography talk with about 100, 150 photographers in the room, right? Jalandhar, another great place, right? So they're like, sir, ye sab to theek hai, lekin hamara yahan nahi hota hai. Right? Our brides are not like this.
Rainbow nahi chahiye.
No,
like, why are they so happy?
Exactly. They're like, why are they so happy? Hamare yahan to koi hasta hi nahi hai. Right? प्यार ही नहीं है, right? And
it's like forced marriage.
हाँ, ऐसे लहंगा है ही नहीं हमारे पास तो, साड़ी मिलता है आपके. I'm like, boss, तुम अगर वो पूरे फोटो में, if you're only able to see that, right? Then I can't help you, right? But more importantly, when I say believe in that the rainbow exists, it all comes back to this 3-worded thing.
How you find that?
Believe in love. Yeah. Believe in love. I mean, you may be shooting an arranged marriage where there is no love right now between the bride and groom. But there is a hell of a lot of love from the father giving that daughter away. From the mother who is literally seeing a mirror reflection of herself, right, come to life. And she's helping her through. It's an emotional ride. Believe in all of those things. The thing is, when I show my photos, my father-in-law right now is looking at me edit a set, right? And it's this bride who's super happy and she's having the time of her life, okay? And it's this really nice photo that I'm editing. And uncle is like, Joe, are all those diamonds real? Right? I'm like, oh, there are diamonds. So there's this, I vividly remember, there's this Instagram story I put up. I'm going on and on about one monologue only, but okay. There's this Instagram story I put about 4 years ago. I was shooting a wedding where the front row had Boris Johnson, Hillary Clinton, Sundar Pichai.
I think I can guess.
Among the notable people, right? And there were a lot of other people in the room. And I remember Instagram, press, everybody was, all the comments would be about, does she really love him? I am sure, Abba, why you have to wear all such things, right? Look at that lehenga, it is like this. I'm the wedding photographer, okay? And I'm only thinking...
No pressure.
No, I'm the wedding photographer. I'm thinking, there is so much love. All I'm seeing is the bride's smile. All I'm seeing is the groom's smile, right? And that's why when I started this, I said there is a lot of cynicism in this industry, okay? And I will not take away anything. It is a pure blessing that Devika and I are not loaded with that cynicism. I think it has a lot to do. It has a lot to do with our upbringing, right? And our childhoods. It's
and our lives ever since.
Yes, and our lives. Yeah. It's a blessing that I'll never take for granted, right? Yeah. The fact that I get to hang out with probably the world's most powerful personalities and I'm able to see them as human beings and not for everything else that they're made up of, right? I think that's the major reason why we can be at a Kohli Sharma wedding in Tuscany. And the last thing we're thinking about is the fact that it's a Kohli Sharma wedding in Tuscany. I am thinking it's 2 degrees centigrade. Are Noel and Shivali wearing their thermals before they step out? My team, right? I'm thinking, okay, is the Barat starting on time? Because if it is, I'm screwed. I'm shooting the Haldi here, right? All those things is what I'm thinking. I'm not thinking... I'm shooting the Varmala, a shot that I think millions of people have seen, right? And I'm thinking, does Noel have the right angle? And he did. Thank God, because all of us think that way. Noel is not thinking, oh, this is Virat's wedding. He was in the right place at the right time to get that one epic shot of, Virat just ducking away from the Varmala. So freaking lucky that I get to work with a team like that. And so freaking blessed that I think cynicism just doesn't have a place in our... If it did, though, we would not be the kind of, I hate that word, successes that we are today, right? Or looking forward to more. It's one of these receptions, and I can go on and describe it, but I won't, right? One of the biggest receptions I've ever shot, right? They were doing toasts like they do, right? And when they were, I realized that the wealthiest layer in India has stronger family relationships than anyone else. And I think they have it because of no other choice, right? They're surrounded by cynics as well, right? I'm not talking extended family. I'm saying immediate family. They don't have they have nobody else to trust, right? So when they find somebody else that they can trust, I think they stick to them even more. This is all realizations and epiphanies. These are not conscious decisions at all.
Yeah. But you have to go in with this open mind, and that's I think that's a big challenge for a lot of us, right? Open heart, open mind, and to not be so biased by our preconceptions from when you're not on a job, right? Like all the other things that you might read and be sort of, and you kind of just put that away and focus.
I was taught. There's this Australian photographer named Jerry Jonas. He's one of my favorite photographers, and he said that the best portrait that you can make is when you make somebody look like they would from the eyes of a loved one, right? Your mother sees you a certain way. She sees you as the most beautiful person that she's ever seen. It's just the way it is, right? Can you as a photographer translate even say 20% of that into your photo? So then it doesn't matter, because I've shot so many brides who, the comments are also like, oh, but she's this sized. We have a new word for it nowadays, body positivity or whatever it is, right? All that is like conscious decision. Like if you truly love somebody and if you love your subjects, you will see them in a certain way.
Sure.
Right? But if you don't, then you're not going to. So that thing stuck in my head, man. I was so moved because like, can I show the bride, can I portray the bride as how her mom would see her? I was like, wow, that is tough.
I also think like it's reducing what we do.
Yeah.
Like this constant conversation of
it's
how
just
did
a
you
job then.
No, how did you feel when you designed Anushka and Virat's wedding? Like I feel it every other wedding. I was dying under pressure. I had butterflies in my stomach, full stop.
What's next for you guys now that you've reached this pinnacle in your
It's a lot
career.
to go, man.
I have two very clear things I want to do.
Hmm.
Spend more time at home with my dog, and I want to design cities.
Wow.
Not related at all to each other, but that's my next decade. And this is throwing it into the world, saying, here.
Manifesting.
Yeah. I don't like that word because I think a lot comes with just hard work. But I think it's like, how every decade you get up and it's like two bizarre things or like two things you want to do. That's it for me. Whatever else comes out of this, we're
But
up
like,
for
so
it.
from weddings to I mean, yeah, I guess it's
Why not?
it's space design, right? So it's.
I think I've discovered that life is not a straight line ever. It's this very weird snake pathway, and I think the minute you leave scope for it, like unforeseen magical things sort of tumble, and all
100%.
three of us are proof of it.
I want to do, and this has been a want for a while actually, like I want to do stuff which are long term. As a wedding photographer, I think all of our projects are short term. I mean, the impact is long term, but the process is very short term. It finishes in 3 to 4 days. I mean, 40 days is the longest I've done. Yes, there is such a thing. The wedding that we met at was 16 days long.
Yeah.
In
What?
3 cities or
We
4
started-
cities?
No, 3 cities.
3
Oh my
cities.
God.
There are different groups of relatives,
Yeah.
Gauri. That's how they do
Oh,
it. Yes.
Right.
Huh.
Okay.
Yeah. No, so we...
So you had enough time basically to like hang out and get to know
Correct.
each other, and
Correct.
yeah, so
Correct.
you owe it to them.
Yes. And they still think they
Yeah,
know it.
they
They're
know
very. They were there at our wedding, that client, because
Yeah.
they were like, we made this wedding
They
happen.
were also trying to set us up at that wedding.
Yes.
They didn't know we were already set up by the time they were setting us up.
They were trying really hard to set it
Yeah.
up. Yes. Okay. Now back to this. Long-term project means anything that takes like 6 months, probably a year to put together, right? Because it's been a while. I mean, I miss that process. I think a lot of other forms of creativity have it. We don't.
But you work with brands as well,
We do.
And so, I mean, is that something that is
That
possibly more
is-
long term?
It is. It actually is. And it's a different kind of high altogether. We do a show called Where the Heart Is for Asian Paints, which is completely our baby, to the level that Where the Heart is a term coined by Joshua. It's his pitch. I direct it. And we are today in our 7th season, which is very unique for a branded show. And I think we have some obscene number of 300 million views, something like that, right? We want to do more like that. I'm not sure if filmmaking is in the pipeline ever, but it definitely is. Anything that is long term really inspires me. Like when I play a game today, when I see a beautifully made film, I just think of the journey of that film, from the first letter being written on an empty piece of paper, right, to that being translated to the visual form, and finally the dubbing and everything else. We used to do something called PEP, which was a photography conference, right, which was also a no-holds-barred photography conference, in the sense it's not elitist, which is what most art fests are, right? It was, if you're an amateur, come, right? It doesn't matter. If you want to come, take photos at this, come, no problem. The last time we did it was 2019, before the pandemic shut that effort down, right? But we had 2,100 photographers in the room.
Wow.
We had Pete Souza, the guy I just spoke about,
Yeah.
Barack Obama's official White House photographer, as the keynote
Wow.
speaker, right? That was long term, because it would take 6 to 7 months to execute PEP, from putting that speaker pipeline to ensuring that everybody, including the last row, had goosebumps by the time they left. That was beautiful. But what I say, it's like the age-old Hindi thing, kuch karna hai, you know.
No, but I think it's also at a place where you want to give back now,
Yes.
and not keep it to the sort of
Yeah.
team that just works with you immediately, but sort
Yes.
of and so is there going to be another photography? Yeah.
There
For
may
all
be,
the
but it
people
won't be.
listening, no doubt.
There may be, but it won't be in the same form for sure. I think the future is the creator meta that everybody's created, right? And we may go far beyond just photography. Yeah.
So I know we've been going on, and I probably should have taken a break at some point, but I didn't. But I'm going to ask you sort of one more technical question before we get to a fun bit. But what would be 3 tips for budding photographers, and in your case,
You wanna go?
wedding
You go first.
designers?
Okay, I'll go first. First tip is, before you shoot your first wedding, for example, get to know the bride and groom that you're photographing, right? Have a conversation. It's as simple as that. This is not a transactional conversation. I think when two people speak to each other, you get to know it, irrespective of the content of the conversation, you get to know each other innately. Why is this needed? Is because you want your subjects to ignore you during the biggest moment of their lives, right? And you only ignore people that you're familiar with. A stranger in your space is always going to make you feel conscious. Consciousness leads to not candid moments, right? So, simple workflow, get to know your brides and grooms, they will get to know you. You do the effort. Even if it's a celebrity wedding that I'm shooting, I ask them for a Zoom call, right? The bare minimum. Even if they're staying Belgrade and, Bihar, doesn't matter. Join in, have a call, and make it a long ass call, not this 20-minute, 15-minute. I'm never asking questions like, no, tell me on 11th, what exactly are you doing? That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking stuff like, tell me your story, like, how did you meet? Tell me all the problems that you face. Tell me the things that at your wedding, who's, once the Varmala happens, close your eyes and think of the first person you're going to look at, right? It may not be the groom. That's fine. That's a big moment in their lives that they've taken that leap of faith. It's those things that I want. I want them to ignore me, right? So number one, if you want to make those real moments that I capture, do that, right? The second technical tip would be make time for things beyond wedding photography. Because this is a generic thing as an artist, is that your art is a reflection of your life, and your life needs to be interesting enough for your art to be interesting enough. That's it. You be so narrow tunnel visioned about weddings only, you're going to look like every other wedding photographer, right? I think having a dog and just spending time at home has changed my entire view of the way I look at weddings. I go searching for photos of the grandmother nowadays, right? What is she up to? Is she having a ball of a time somewhere else? And the third, if possible, separate the business from the art, right? Because either one will kill the other if you're not good at both of them, right? The business aspect will kill your innate desire to make art, because something you loved and started something you loved. You started something because you loved something, will slowly turn into hate and respite, right? Like, this shit is taking all my time. It's not. It's the peripheral stuff that is related to that shit that's taking the time, right? And the art can kill your business as well. I know so many people who are so hung up, so egotistic, that they can never run a successful business, right? If you can, just give it off to somebody, right? Give off the business aspect to somebody. Find a partner who'll do all that stuff well, because you want, I hope, and actually that is what is next for me, is I want to be a wedding photographer at the age of 60, right? I know wedding photographers who are above 50 now successfully pursuing their art. I wish the same for you, correct? Whoever you are listening in. Yeah.
Valuable information for anyone who's listening in: learn to do your taxes.
Thank you.
Right? Number one, figure out accounts, figure out your taxes, get your
Oh
finances.
my God, we
in
are so
order.
similar. This is scary.
Quickly followed by know your shit.
Yeah.
It's very easy to start something without having the technical knowledge of it. It's a bit of a nerdy answer coming from me, but
So
ask
true.
questions, learn, be really, really good at what you do, and make the effort to learn what trussing is, what lighting is. Don't be like, I don't know this.
Yeah.
But make the effort to learn and know things. The first thing is, and I say this especially for wedding design or any sort of design, is when you walk into your first meeting, when you walk into your first thing, listen. Listen to what the other person wants. Have the empathy to understand what they're saying before you start throwing your ideas on your table. Just because something is in fashion, just because something is cool, doesn't mean it's relevant to them. Make sure you're listening with a little bit of like tempered empathy to them first before you start saying, this is how it's done, this is a trend, this is a fashion. So that's it. Know your taxes, learn, and what is the first
Know
one?
your shit.
Know your
which
shit.
Is,
Sorry, know
which
your
I
shit.
wish I had said, because that
Yeah.
is so true for
Yeah.
photographers.
Know your
On that note, we're going to take a quick break, and I have a last fun few questions, fun for me at least, if not for you, that I want you to both answer honestly. So we'll be right back.
Hey folks, this is your host Masaba Gupta. I want to tell you all about Club Paisa Vaisa. This is a premium tier offering for fans of the show. Members of this club have a few privileges, and let me tell you about them. Members will get access to episodes 3 days prior to the release. Members will get the archival access to all Paisa Vaisa episodes starting from day 1. And the non-members will still get access to the latest 15 episodes. I'll bring you weekly host insights, giving you my personal learnings from each episode on the show, and all of this will come with a completely ad-free experience. Finally, In 2023, we have some exciting plans for new exclusive content that is available only for members. You can go to club.ivmpodcast.com/paisa or click on the link in the description and sign up today. As an introductory offer, it's at ₹699 for a one-year membership. Note that starting 2023, all Paisa Vaisa episodes will become a part of Club Paisa Vaisa, and the non-members will get access to the latest 15 episodes. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you on the other side.
Okay, so enough business and technical talk. This is about the two of you. First of all, thank you both. I'm very honored that you both are appearing for the first time on a podcast together on This Round Is On Me. So here is, I feel like I've gotten to know you a little bit and I might be able to answer some of these questions. So I have the answers in my head, but now I'm going to see what you'll say. Okay, so who is more romantic?
He's more dramatic. He's more like... He's the more dramatic romantic.
Yeah, I was right.
Yeah.
I know, like every like a lot of your
he's-
answers were like prefaced with, "I'm gonna give the romantic
Yeah.
answer." So yeah, you're like tuck tuck tuck.
Yeah. I'm very like straightforward.
Yeah, I know.
I'm mad at you. I like you. Let's move forward.
But in a moment of crisis, it's Devika with the level head.
Yeah.
So let's go there. Yeah.
Who's the better cook?
I can't cook to save my life. I'll rephrase that. I'm such a bad cook. He had to learn to cook.
Correct. I am only a
For
cook.
survival.
I am only a cook because Devika sucks at what she does. Okay. And I was like, how hard can it be?
Yeah.
So it's been 3 years of cooking for me. And oh my God, it's the most fun thing on the planet. Yeah.
Who gets more annoying when they're hungry?
Me.
Oh, definitely.
I don't just get annoying. I get hangry.
This is the patience
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who takes longer to get ready?
He.
Hey, that's not true.
That's true. You take longer than me.
Fine.
I take 5 minutes. He takes 7.
Who's more? Okay, I probably know this, but who's more patient with people and situations?
He has tremendous amounts of patience. Right? I'm patient in like a firefighting situation.
As in,
Or-
you don't get
Correct.
you don't get
and
stressed.
I don't get impatient if somebody else is impatient with me, I'll be patient with them. If someone else is rushing
So Devika
him,
gets impatient at the mundane things in life.
Yeah.
Okay. But at the crisis points,
Yeah.
she's super calm. A wall is falling down, she'll be very calm. Right? But at home, the carpet is 10 degrees off. Oh, you're screwed. Okay. So yeah. I'm also very self-aware, so I will say that patience is one of my biggest virtues, right? Not necessarily, I don't think my team will agree with me with that, only because I'm a person who expects more from them. That's the way it is. So I'll always be pushing them to do more. I'm very irritating.
like the carpet which is off by 10 degrees.
Correct.
Who's always right? I am just kidding. Don't even go there. Like cruising for bruising. No. Who has more air miles?
Joe, because he
Yeah.
remembers to file them in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm very specific. I will only fly this airline.
Yeah.
That's the only
Anyway,
reason.
listen, this has been really great fun, and I have learned so much, and I'm super confident that everyone listening in is gonna go away with a lot of pearls from you guys. It's been really, I didn't know either of you at all before this, and you asked me how I heard about you all, of course, Instagram, but I have loved every minute of this
Thank you.
conversation.
Thank you
and
for
thank you
having
so
us.
much
Thank you
for
for having us.
being candid and being fun.